Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Nate.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
And today, we're here with, I believe, a viewer question?
Yes.
We love viewer questions.
We love viewer questions. Send us your questions.
Please. You can put your questions in the comments below, or you can email us at thepopishplot@gmail.com.
Anyway, a little while ago, we got a question from a viewer on essentially what is the church's thoughts or stance on eco-burials.
Now, we might need to define terms. What exactly is an eco-burial?
Well,
that was going to be my question.
Well,
I have a question about the question.
yes, an eco-friendly burial or a green burial or a natural burial are different names for basically the same thing, which is a burial with as little environmental impact as possible.
Based on that, I'm a big fan of this.
Yeah.
Yes, it includes things like there'll be no embalming, there's no vaults. Sometimes the caskets are made of wood. Sometimes they'll use other biodegradable material like cardboard or bamboo or reeds. Or they have no casket at all and then they just use a shroud.
That sounds awesome. So edgy.
Some places will have essentially they'll put a GPS on the body to find it, so that way there's nothing that you can see above that's marring the landscape.
So you've got
You're geocaching your own
wait.
body?
Wait. Hold on. So what you're telling me is that there's a way of being buried where you have like a virtual headstone?
Yes. Some will also just have native stones for markers, or they'll have no markers at all. Some will have a collective monument that lists all the names and dates of the people that are buried in that area, so it's not one all over the place, but just a big one. The burial grounds are also, if they're a green burial cemetery space, are not going to be using chemicals for upkeep, and they may actually make a point of looking like a field. So, they have native plants, some shrubs, some trees. It might even be like nice rolling fields, so it's not, just grass and flat. Mm-hmm. And some traditional cemeteries will allow green burials or green sections on otherwise traditional set downs of, the lines and plots. So they might have an area that's the green area.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think it's important to note, so far what I'm hearing, it all sounds good to me, but I do think it is important to note that before you make any official plans, you should look into what your state allows. Because I do know that there are some states that have mandates about what needs to be in place when a body goes into the ground.
Yes, but this is just on what, in general, the Catholic Church says.
I understand. I'm just saying.
Your states might have your own issues. I still find... I want to know who was the lobbyist in the state of Michigan that says a funeral director who's not a doctor has to sign off on a death certificate.
Michigan's laws are awful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But before we worry about what the state says, and, I mean, both Nate and Jess are right. You should check, but let's not get bogged down in those details.
No.
What does the church say?
Well, first I'm going to go through what I found for church rules/suggestions for the care of the dead.
Okay.
First, the body should be dealt with in a respectable way that is fitting the dignity of humans.
Weekend at Bernie's is right out.
Yep.
Right out.
And the idea that I had for a wake when I was like 20 something, where you had the coffin.
The deceased that technically does not fall under that's a human thing.
No.
It's in very poor taste.
I suggested
It's
having
bad taste, not immoral.
I suggested effectively having the body laying in state while actually standing upright in the corner at a party where people just did whatever.
Again, I think that's tacky but not immoral.
I don't know.
Well, people do whatever.
Well, like I suggest, like putting like drinks in his hand and putting drinks in their hands.
No.
See, once again, this is where I'm saying
Not dignified.
It's not dignified.
Okay, all right.
Now, like if you have, just for example, a favorite flask, and you want to be buried with that's in fine taste. People putting different cocktails in your hand and then possibly, just maybe, having pictures taken of them, not dignified.
All right.
Fair.
The next thing is, if at all possible, there should be a funeral mass.
Amen.
The rite of committal, which is prayers that are usually said.
Please arrange to have a funeral mass. Don't leave it up to your kids.
Yeah.
Especially if they're, not really practicing the faith, arrange it ahead of time with the priest that you will, at a minimum, have a funeral mass. Please, I beg you.
Next is there should be the rite of committal before burial, preferably like it should be at the burial site or like nearby, and it should be done separately from the funeral and not in the church.
Yes.
Fourth, all the remains should be placed in or on consecrated or blessed ground. It doesn't have to be a Catholic cemetery because, you know, the priest could get permission to bless just this plot. Or
I just love the word plot.
or in a location if it's a mausoleum or you say that
Columbarium.
Thank you.
Columbarium, yes.
A dove house?
Yes. That's the spot you put all the
I
remains
do
'cause they're
not
like a dove.
want my remains put in a dove house, okay?
I'm saying that's the origin of the word columbarium.
I understand. I'm just saying.
Your shoe's not with me.
And looking this up, I found something interesting. Technically, if you were cremated and wanted to be, you know, put in the sea, if you're put in a box that allows your remains to be in one place that will be weighted so it sinks down, that is allowed.
Oh, I mean, the church totally allows burial at sea.
So
yeah.
I could be. So what you're saying is I could be cremated and buried at the bottom of the ocean.
Yes, well,
Or
usually,
a bog.
historically, buried at sea was done for practical purposes. Of,
Yeah.
they take the body off board because you're going to be on this boat for months and you can't have a rotting dead body there.
But
But like even now, it's allowed, which I
yeah.
found interesting.
yeah.
Also, I saw a thing from the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith
Those guys.
in their instructions on burial and cremation that notes the church cannot condone attitudes or permit rites that involve erroneous ideas about death, such as considering death as the definitive annihilation of the person,
Which it's not.
or the moment of fusion with Mother Nature,
No.
It's not.
or the universe,
Which it's not.
No.
or as a stage in the cycle of regeneration,
Nope.
Again,
or,
no.
or as a definitive liberation from the prison of the body.
No.
Definitely out.
Simply, I noted that because that's part of the reason why it took so long for cremation to be allowed,
Yeah.
because people who first started doing cremation in the West did it as essentially, the resurrection's not taking place, so I'm being cremated.
Yeah.
However, all those people, even if they were buried, are now pretty much dust. So, you know,
And so for those individuals who out there who may be thinking, well, I'm going to be cremated and I'm going to have the ashes scattered around the base of a tree so that I can then go and become one with the tree. No. It crosses both the lines of the ashes being kept together and
Or-
that whole idea of you're becoming one with the tree kind of a thing.
But-
also, ashes are nutritionally not at all useful for plants.
No, if you really want to feed a tree, what you should do is you should go with the more eco-burial style at the base of a tree.
Yes, and I actually, looking this up, apparently a thing in Germany is that you get cremated, you put your cremains in an urn, and then you put that at a base of the tree, which is something that even the super liberal German bishops are like, it's allowable, but it's not preferred.
Yeah. Why are you doing this? Okay, so let's.
Because I like this shady tree, and I want my body to lay here for the rest of its time on Earth.
No, there's definitely something shady going on. But let's focus on the issue of eco-burials. So, is there anything in an eco-burial that necessarily conflicts with these principles?
Well, there are some things that can be minor, easy to fix issues, and there are some versions of eco-burials that are,
Problematic.
yes. Yes.
Now, what I'm thinking is what we hear at Ash Wednesday, the words of Genesis, "You are dust, and to dust you will return." So, in Michigan, as my understanding of the law is, bodies have to be placed in a ridiculous concrete vault.
Unless they've been cremated.
Unless they've been cremated. So if your body is still intact, it has to be put into a concrete vault.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of just being put in a shroud and laid in the earth, or being put in a very simple wooden coffin and being laid in the earth, because we are dust, and to dust we shall return until we are all gloriously resurrected. That seems very cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Now,
And very Christian.
yes. Now, for the shroud, there is a minor issue that you could then work with of to have a funeral mass, you need the body.
Yes.
Now, there's been some discussion, like, among different people, if you have cremains, is it a funeral mass or is it a memorial? And, people have sided on each side.
Yeah.
But, it's generally, it's allowed but not preferred to, not have the actual body intact. So if you were doing the shroud, you'd have to like rent a casket, which was not a big deal, but it is part of the things you would, want to do.
Sure.
As even in our super strict state, you don't have to be embalmed to have a closed casket, but you do need a casket to be transporting around the place.
Yes. Totally. Totally.
And realistically,
You can't get into the carpool lane with the dead body.
If you're going really green and you're not going to be embalming, and nobody really wants to be in a
that's also cool.
church that might be potentially warm in the summertime with a rotting corpse.
I mean, it does take longer than modern people think to get to the point where you're like, I don't want to be anywhere near this. However,
4 days though was a stink.
Yes. Another thing that is possibly an issue is if you have one where you have absolutely no monument or marker. A number of sources consider that essentially denying the humanness of the person. Now, the group markers, from what I was doing in my research, there's some Catholic cemeteries that actually do the group marker.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and of course...
And if it was like, a situation where you couldn't have a marker, that would be different than, choosing not to.
Yeah. The thing you have to be careful about not having a marker is, what is your attitude, and are you, if subtly, not explicitly, then denying the resurrection and denying the efficacious practice of praying for the dead.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. That's one of those ones where it's at the level of talk to your priest and see what they think.
Well, just again, just to use the life of our Savior as the example, there was no doubt about where his body was laid.
Yes.
They all knew where to go.
Well, exactly.
Yes. And then there are some cutting edge forms of green burials that there's questions on if this is treating the body respectfully.
Yeah.
And there's also the issue of, again, I know it seems personally, for a lot of people, weird that we take our saints, we make relics and put them all over the earth. But if you're a normal person, you got to be all together. But that's the rule.
To love of Thanos.
And like a new thing that is pretty much not legal anywhere, but they're working on it, is things like composting the body, which
No.
Because once again, with that one, you once again run into the returning it all to nature kind of a thing.
And also, you would think a body would make, maybe like a cubic yard of stuff, but because of all the stuff they put in, like, you're going to need a big truck to haul all the dirt that may be the person. And then things like the body pods that you're essentially using to plant a tree are seriously questionable.
Yeah.
Like the ones where you put on clothes that are, filled with fungal spores, that's a little bit of or ask your priest, because you're not attempting to make a mushroom farm. You're just like, I am hurrying the process of returning to dirt quicker.
Yeah.
So that would be definitely an ask about.
Again, the issue with composting is you're not respecting the dignity of the body. You're trying to put it to a useful purpose, but you're just treating the body as a thing, which inevitably goes to the old Platonic Gnostic idea that
the ghost in the machine.
Yeah, the soul is just trapped in the body. So once the soul is liberated, let's just still get some useful work out of the body by composting it. I'm a big fan of composting, just not human remains.
No.
Yes, and it is something that maybe in time, when they get much more down to a minimal amount and it's simply the new version of cremation, the church might look at it. But right now, it's a lot of people who are like, my body is just fuel for the universe.
Which it's not.
It's not.
But the idea, the fundamental idea here of having a minimal environmental impact is a very laudable one.
Yes, in fact, the more traditional forms of green burial are actually more popular among Catholics than the general public.
Yeah.
About 12% of all green burial plots in America are Catholic.
And if we lived in a state where, you didn't have to worry about that big concrete vault, I would probably say that sounds like an awesome idea.
Absolutely. I mean, I already love the idea of having a very simple wooden casket.
Very simple wooden box. Just
made by monks.
Made by monks with a cloth wrapped corpse straight into the ground.
I mean, we're not going to be rich enough to have the mausoleum. That's a family one. It has the names and life-size figurines. So, I mean, that's the other way to go.
But that would be nice.
A 2011 survey found that up to 80% of American Catholics are in favor of the traditional green burial. You know, I want just a simple casket or a shroud.
And don't we all just want to be laid in the earth? Like, when you think about your burial, that's what you think of. And then you realize the creepy, corrupt practice of, nope, you got to be put into a concrete vault.
Somebody's made some lobbyist made a ton of money off of that.
Funeral directors, grumble.
So we know some.
We
know some good holy funeral directors.
It's an honorable profession, but the funeral industry as a whole is an abomination.
That's fair.
Yes. And also, as we've already mentioned, many people argue that, you know, the simple burial is more in line with Christian thought and historic Christian burials. As throughout most of history, that's how you buried someone.
Yeah.
Yes. So, to answer the viewer's question, if you want the top of the line newest thing that results in you making like 12 cubic feet of compost, the church is against it, and it's going to require major changes in a length of time on the philosophy of most people involved.
Yeah, you better plan on living for a while.
But as far as just a simple traditional green burial, absolutely. I mean, again, they laid the Lord in the tomb wrapped in, you know, some simple linen.
Yes, and also I love the ones that have the GPS type and geomarkers.
Seriously,
you get an app on your phone to find your loved ones.
I think it'd be kind of cool to have an app on my phone that can tell. Sadly, so many people in my family were buried prior to global positioning satellites, but it would be just kind of cool to have them all just, you know. I'm in this area. Do I have any loved ones buried nearby?
I know my people here.
Actually, it would be easier to find his grandmother in winter with a GPS than what she has now, because that cemetery is like, it has to be flat, level to the ground. So you get a half an inch of snow and you're like, she's somewhere by this tree.
She's somewhere within 20 feet of this, to the south, to the north of this tree.
There's a cemetery across from my neighborhood, and it's all flat stones like that. No, I like a good, just traditional headstone.
I do like that they have two Pokestops that you can hit from the grocery store across the road.
You'd like ours, because we've got the really old stuff. You know, it's been there so long, you can't read what it says on it anymore because it's been worn away by weather and time.
Yeah. Old Calvary? There's some good ones in there.
Right.
Yeah, both my family's Catholic and Protestant side have cemeteries where you can look up and see dates from the 1800s if you go to the old section.
Yep.
Or you got to squint at because it got worn flat by weather.
Yeah. Or our favorite, the headstone, the vampire headstone.
We'll make a pilgrimage sometime.
She's not really a vampire.
She's not really a vampire, but she was born long enough ago that there is no... There's no humanly possible way that she's still alive.
And there's no death date.
But there's no death date on the headstone.
So, you know, it's a couple headstones. So either she got remarried and got buried there, or like she moved in with family.
Vampire headstone.
It's the vampire headstone.
I like it. So, thank you again to the viewer for that fascinating question. I had never heard of eco-burials before today, but...
We hope you enjoyed our response to your question. And as well as we hope you found it informative.
And if you have aspects of the question that you feel we didn't properly explore, let us know.
Yeah, maybe you really want to get down and dirty with composting human remains.
I mean, it's pretty new.
I was thinking more like maybe we could get one of our funeral director friends on to help answer more questions. But okay,
sure.
We'll compost human remains.
We'll
see how that goes.
Yeah, that's not even a hint of legal in our state. Like in California, it's a questionable thing, I think. You know?
No, I believe here in Michigan they are considered to be biohazardous waste. But you know, we do happen to know some funeral directors, so we could totally bring one on to the show and have them answer some questions.
I mean, you'd have better luck with the one where you like use water and vibration to break you down, so it's like cremains, but you're not burnt.
Seriously, that's a thing?
It is. There's a certain amount of issues with how much are you still having, you know, biohazard things. So,
So Give this episode a like. Subscribe to our channel. Ring the church bell to be notified when the next plot is uploaded.
Comment with any questions or further discussion that you might like to have. And until next time, remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
Share that love.